listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, December 21st, year of our Lord 2017, and you're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. First of all, I just want to start out. We try to start every show with this. The whole idea behind the show is to stimulate intelligent debate. All we're trying to do, we're not saying that we have all the answers. We're just trying to show you that the answers we're being given don't make sense all the time. So you need to kind of dig into it. We've got the largest encyclopedia in the world right in front of us. If you do enough research, if you learn how to research properly, you can find an answer to pretty much any question that you have right there on the internet through all the largest libraries in the world. So the whole idea is to not take what we say as gospel, unless of course we're quoting the gospel, but to do your own research. Feel free to fact check us. Contact us via email, Facebook, however you would like. Let us know when we're wrong. We appreciate the listener engagement. But please, just do some research, man, because the truth is out there. There are no more secrets, only ignorance. So it looks like we're going down the rabbit hole classic today. We're going back to the earliest episodes of Down the Rabbit Hole when we were just a two-headed monster. Although I think Mr. Domus just walked in the door, probably dealing with a little bit of that traffic that I love so much. But we got Chris on the board, and it's me and Hoops. And we're gonna
What's up, Toenails?
Gonna free for all it.
What's up?
I don't think your mic's on.
It will be in a second.
Mic check.
There you go. What's up, Tony?
Beautiful day.
Yeah, I had the same day, brother. So I think we all did.
Is this
Are you guys serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
if you're being facetious, then I totally agree with you. If you're being sincere, fuck off. I don't think this show's ever going to make popular circulation on YouTube, so I say if we want to swear, let's just let it out today.
let it go. Let it fly.
Let it go. You think today's the swear show?
So let's talk.
Well, it's Christmas.
Yeah, right.
You got a
It's the
haircut, you
season to be
shaved. I mean, you're
swearing.
clean cut today.
Shave and a haircut.
Which makes me look even more like a Sasquatch sitting next to you.
So you had a crappy week?
Well, I'll be working through the holidays, so.
No.
That's a bad thing?
Your fault or a client paying you shitloads of money to do it?
Well, it's paid. It's not my fault, so you got to take it when it's there. Customers, you gotta take care of them.
Well, yeah, they need to make you work through the holidays so they can enjoy their time with their family and have something to do when they get back.
That's automotive. It's always like that, to be honest. I worked last Christmas.
The other thing, even when you're the CEO, you still report. It might not be employees in a conventional sense, but you report to your clients and you report to your board of directors if you've got one. And they themselves also. The buck doesn't really stop anywhere.
No, it never stops.
Well, I think most of the small businesses, basically the ownership does the majority of the work and takes on a lot of the things that owners have to do. You want to make sure that you take care of your employees and they get their Christmas bonuses and all that. And, if it's not enough at the end of the day.
Sure, come work for Tony.
Yeah. Right. Ready to go? Let's go, man. We're working.
You need a graphic designer there? I did CAD back in the day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We'll put you to work.
Okay, I'm coming.
I try to get my daughter to do it. She's actually pretty good with a little software she does for like Sims for designing houses and neighborhoods and all that.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's really into that. But, hey, she got made the dean's list at Michigan State.
Congratulations.
Wow. Good job for her.
Yeah.
Michigan State wasn't that the number 3 party school in the nation?
It was behind my school when I went.
Central used to be the big one.
How do you
were you at Central?
That's where I went.
How do you make the dean's list at MSU? Quickest beer bong? Or just kidding.
You know, she's not like her dad. She doesn't go out.
Good. I hope she's not like her dad.
Yeah, me too. Believe me. Woo.
I'm doing
over that one.
I'm doing everything in my power to raise my son to be nothing like me.
You know, Dave starts talking about how he's changed and, you know, used to do different things. And I look back at that and I'm like, man, I hope those stories don't come out.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, things we did when we were
with the kids,
stupid kids.
Oh,
you know, partying and.
See, I don't go into details, but I'm very as my son is sitting on the couch, I'm very honest with him. You know, I tell him I was a F up. You know, I was an evil kid for sure, and so basically he's not going to get away with anything.
Yeah,
because I already know the signs. I know when he's lying to me.
Yeah, we've done that. We've been there.
Oh, dude. Oh, the stories I would tell my mother, and she would believe me. God rest her soul.
Well, I could tell you some stories.
No, you're not kidding.
yeah, our family growing up was different. With my dad, if you were straight up with my dad, that was the cool. That was good. He wanted honesty. He wanted to know. He wanted like a genuine, truthful relationship. And so we'd come home. There'd be like the first time we went out drinking. I came home and hey, Mom, Dad, tonight was the first night I had beers. And they weren't the kind of parents that were like, oh, you're grounded for 3 weeks, and they start marking all their liquor bottle levels. They were more like, all right, let's teach you how to drink so you don't become a raging alcoholic. And same thing, even with drugs, like when I tried drugs, weed, and I've tried most of them, never tried heroin, or I have tried LSD and some other stuff like that. Cocaine, I've tried it. God, that's a great drug. I don't want to sound like Rick James, but that is one hell of a drug. And
Rick James, bitch.
Growing up, like I could talk to my dad, but if I mentioned it to my mom, it'd be like a level 9 emergency. It's overreact. Oh my God, you need help. Yeah, no, Mom, I'm just a teenager experimenting. It's normal. Well, if you smoke pot, it's a gateway drug. No, that's actually what they tell you on television. It's not a gateway drug.
Yeah, no.
Because now, looking back, I can prove I don't even believe a theory back then. I think it was a fact. I mean, let's face it. Of all the adults we know, how many of them smoke weed, for instance?
All of them?
Yeah, who doesn't smoke weed is a better question.
I know like one person out of all my buddies who doesn't smoke weed and drink.
So I just don't really believe it's really the gateway drug. Everyone says it is.
It's not the gateway drug because, you know, when you're stoned, you just want munchies. You're not looking for more stonage. You want more Funyuns.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not it's no more a gateway drug than beer is. That's like saying that, oh, you drink beer, you're going to be drinking Johnny Walker Black next. No, pretty much people stick with beer.
If you had to make a choice, your child is either going to be a pothead or an alcoholic. Which would you choose?
Wow. Neither.
But if you had to choose one.
Well, I think alcoholism, you see how that goes. If you're really an alcoholic, that's...
If you're addicted to one of those, like if I had to choose for my son...
Potheads never get shit done.
They're just...
I disagree, man. I think... Not just personal experience, but pretty much... I mean, people that get... like the CEO of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, for instance... Big pothead. Same with, I think, Larry Ellison at Oracle.
Yeah, but when you say, when you compare pothead to alcoholic, there's a level of pothead where it's unproductive when you are comparing it to alcoholism. Now, if he was going to dabble, I mean, I've got plenty of friends who use pot instead of Xanax, and it works awesome for them.
Especially when you combine them. I'm just kidding.
And in fact, I've got one friend in particular that chooses to do that if I hang out with him too long and he doesn't smoke pot, I want to kill him.
You know what's funny is, like you guys know, weed was a big thing in my life for a while. And I've had a couple of girlfriends or even fiancés where I was like, I just want to quit this. I want to get rid of it, which I took care of in December of 2015. At least every one of them, like my first weekend or second weekend, would be like, are you sure you don't want to just take a little hit and take the... Because it would just mellow me out, puts you in a good mood, opens up your mind. But if you do overkill on it, like anything, even if it's cheeseburgers, it's going to have the law of negative return.
Why do you look at me when you say cheeseburgers?
I didn't look at you, did I?
Yeah, you did.
Cheeseburger.
Well, there's only two guys to look
You
at
looked
right now.
right
so.
at me.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to say cheeseburgers to you.
Cheeseburger.
And we got to get Howard to
Dude,
get his pot prop.
A complete overweight
Chill out,
microaggression.
dude.
I think that
My kid's cracking up on the overweight microaggression. He liked that one.
microaggression.
Yeah.
What is microaggression?
Oh, that's one of them things where you say something that offends someone that they shouldn't be offended by.
Oh yeah,
It's a snowflake thing, you know.
Okay, so Tony, tell us about what's up. Let it rip, man. This is a therapy show too.
Yeah.
We're all at different levels here. Let's hear it.
Well, like, I don't know where you're going with that, so you have to be a little more specific.
You came in and said, hey, didn't everyone have a great week?
Yeah.
So was it just the working over the holidays?
And not getting anything done. During the holidays, you've got all these different things going on. I've got work to do, but yet you have to take time to do this or that. And
Yeah.
like we had a luncheon, today, and we brought in this big, awesome luncheon from La Marsa.
I got to work for you, man.
And it was good. It was good, but I didn't get anything done.
I hear you.
So
Yeah, I'm always the killjoy at
And I don't have my
the
Christmas
office
shopping
party
done.
that needs to go back in his office.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, I realized yesterday we have no Christmas shopping done.
Yeah. It's going to hit me hard. I got a lot to do. But, there's more things to talk about. Conspiracy theories.
There are plenty.
There are tons.
I love coming here and hearing Dave's conspiracy theories, so I can't miss it.
Uncle Dave's Conspiracy Story Hour.
Well, there's so many to choose from.
Where to start?
Yeah, it's...
Where to start? You always start out political because that's the stuff that's kind of like right out in your face. So, you got any good stories on that?
Like recent current events?
Yeah.
I normally wait. I just don't even look to the news for information. If I'm watching the news, it is because the football game just ended and the news started and I haven't turned it off yet, or I'm walking through the kitchen and someone else is watching the news and you just happen to hear what's being discussed. But it's when after we go through this process and your eyes get opened, the news, it's almost like it's a farce. It's farcical. It's like this.
I don't believe anything they say. They tell me it's 6:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I check my own clock.
31 degrees.
I do
No,
also
it's
catch
57.
headlines on the Google on my iPhone, which I'm rarely on, but apparently I customized it at some point. So it's got all these articles of things that I typically was interested in at some point, or for whatever reason. But I just go to my Google News, and it's headline after headline of the kinds of topics we normally talk about. So I'm sure that's their Google algorithms kind of already knowing who we are before we know who we are. And so what I get is I get a lot of conspiracy headlines from just regular news outlets. And if I were to amalgamate them all, synthesize them all, everyone's expecting World War III. And in the very, very near future. How or what'll, I don't know, but have you guys picked up on that?
It's being pushed. It really is being pushed. You've got North Korea going on. You've got, and we know the big Russia conspiracy stuff. And what's really interesting, because what I find that stuff that we looked at months and months ago, for example, what was going on behind the scenes with the intelligence and different places, and they were saying there's a internal conflict going on. Well, now that's playing out in the news right now, and it's been
what internal
at least 6 months.
Which internal conflict are we talking about here?
Like CIA, FBI internal conflict, where you have, and if you haven't seen the news lately, they're talking about the actual collusion that was going on in the FBI to help Hillary because they were afraid that Donald Trump could get elected. So they had to get some dirt. They had to get some things made up. And I forgot the term, what they used, but...
gaslighting?
No, it wasn't gas. It was actual things that they were doing with this Russia dossier. And, these things, well, if you look back at some of the, I would say, call the people in the know, the Steve Pacheniks, David Steele, Robert David Steele. Who's the other one that you mentioned the other day, the former CIA?
Ray McGovern, Chip Tatum,
Gunderson.
He's FBI.
Well, this guy's out now, and I get him confused.
Susan Lindauer, former CIA. The CIA has so many whistleblowers. It is, it's unbelievable. You never see them on the air.
No,
because if you let them talk, they will tell you. It will present a completely different picture of what is presented on the news uniformly.
Yeah, once you start hearing these stories and it's all logical, the things they're saying that are happening, the way it's laid out, it starts to make sense to you, and then you see what's going on in the news, and that's when my radar went off. It's like, wait a minute, I'm being lied to because none of this stuff makes sense that you hear from the news, and they're all saying it. They're all saying the same thing. The same way, maybe there's a couple different words in here, but it's basically all the same script that they keep reporting over and over. And it's fascinating to see what's going to happen next, if that makes sense to you.
Well, I'm thinking this Jerusalem thing is going to have something to do with it. This whole recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. By the way, for those who are interested, the members of the UN voted overwhelmingly against recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Well, the United Nations is one of... Look, you have to understand, Satan has many, many organizations and instruments, but there is no one body or organization that... It's not like James Bond and, you're up against Spectre. It's not like that. Well, actually, that one's closer to...
Well, there are groups like that,
without a doubt, and they don't know they're working together or they're working. They're all. It's like an individual agent works at the CIA. He's briefed on what his particular mission or assignment is, and they're not even allowed to talk about it at the water cooler. They cannot compare notes. They're sworn to secrecy, and they carry out their missions in the belief that, hey, this is coming from above. The CIA is here to protect American freedom, so they do it. So they do things like wire building 7-Up and the Twin Towers. Although I don't think that was the CIA. I do believe they had Mossad guys come in to do that.
Oh, they pay. They bring the guys in, just like in Oklahoma City. I just read one. I think the guy's Robert Colby, or one of the guys who was approached as a contractor to be involved in that and refuse. Then had to get out of town when it happened because he knew he was going to be targeted because he had prior knowledge of it.
I forgot the man's name too, but he partners up with a guy for his business. This is just a regular American entrepreneur trying to, live the American dream. He comes to find out that he's partnered up with a CIA guy that really just needed an ongoing operation to conduct a bunch of their black, dark stuff, the stuff that's supposed to be off the books. It's always several layers removed from the Central Intelligence Agency directly. And this guy he was scared for his life. He's like, they got me. They've got me. I don't know what I can do. And I don't remember the guy's name, but there are a lot of stories out there. I doubt it's just one.
Oh, yeah. When you start looking into it, you find story on top of story on top of story, and like we said before, there's a pattern of how things work. It's like a formula, right? How they conduct an operation, how they bring people on. There's it's like written down in the handbook. Okay, contact this guy, who's going to contact this guy who does this, and to get these layers in between. So all these stories, when they start telling these, what they claim, this is what happened. They'll go through and lay it out, and it's always the same formula. It's always the same scheme, and that's the part that's really interesting. So I think one of these days we're going to get to the bottom of this 9/11.
No, we won't.
You don't think so?
No.
I think it's going to come out. It may be very bad when it does come out.
There will never be some official. So for it to come out, for the general public, what does that mean? That means that either the president has to say it or all the news media at the same time come out and say it.
It's not going to happen.
Will never, ever happen. The only way you'll ever know about 9/11 is to look into it for yourself, and all it'll ever be is a personal knowledge, which can lead you to other things, as it did for us.
Well, you can find other people who know the same thing.
Some people just find it too uncomfortable, and they just stop look. They just don't look anymore.
I believe it's going to come out.
I'll bet you $20.
Because the thing is even if it came out, how's it going to come out? So, I mean, somebody who had inside knowledge is going to come out. They're going to lay the blueprints and show videotape of it blowing up, and the people still are not going to believe it.
And look, and by the way, those people have come out.
I know.
Hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Do you know how many 9/11 witnesses have been killed?
Yep.
Who's the black guy that was in Building 7?
The fireman or the...
He wasn't a fireman. He was one of two guys that were trapped in the building. He heard bombs going off all over the place. There's an interview with him on the day of. He's like, there were bombs going off all over Building 7. It had not collapsed yet. And the reporter was like, wait, there's bombs going off in that building, pointing to Building 7. He's like, yes, in that building. And then there were some camera crews that started walking through that building before the towers had collapsed. Okay? Mm-hmm. Before the towers had collapsed, the lobby of Building 7 was absolutely destroyed. He gets up to an escalator, and he's met by Secret Service guys that will not let him go past. Very strange. Because what had fallen on this building? Some bombs had already gone off in this building, yet the only thing that supposedly happened to this point was an airplane hit the 100th floor of North Tower and then hit the 70th whatever floor of the second tower. That shouldn't cause the lobby in a building 300 yards away to be destroyed.
Right.
And these things have come out. The video evidence is out there. I mean, we're at the point where half this nation... Depends how you ask the question. What percentage of the nation believes the official story is false? That number's pretty high. I mean, that's in the 50, 60% range. How many people believe it was an inside job? That number's lower. It's around 30%. How many people believe we let them do it, like we opened up the barn door? That's in the middle between those two groups. It's around 40%. And the number only grows. Because you don't look into it and go, oh, the official version is true. Unless your cognitive dissonance, your ability to cope in this world without structure is so dependent on having an authority figure tell you what to do, it's almost impossible not to see. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't see it, I in my mind, you have a psychological problem. It's a I don't know what it is. I know the Bible certainly talked about it, that people's eyes will be veiled. They will not see this deception coming.
Well, that's why I'm saying I think it's going to come out. That's one of the things.
It'll come out, I think, on Judgment Day. All secrets will be revealed.
It's gonna
all
be bad
court
after
cases
that.
will be retried.
But there's so much there. I mean, not only 9/11.
Every day. There are two shows that I just picked up recently. I was doing marathon watching on them. One of them, actually one show and one movie. So the show The Blacklist, I mentioned it last week.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That show actually comes pretty darn close to, and you'll note you can talk about what's really going on in the world in metaphor on a show like that, and people can accept it because there's room to just call it, oh, it's just a show. But it's actually pretty darn accurate.
This is the one with James Spader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, people normally, we're conditioned to think that enemies are drawn up by national borders. Oh, the Russians are evil. No, the Americans are bad. No, it's Iran. No, it's North Korea. And that's not how it works at all. And this is where actually the Spectre example of the recent James Bond movie, again, is very close to accurate. Have you guys ever seen that?
Which one are you talking about?
The recent James Bond. It was a Spectre, probably came out 4 or 5 years ago. It's just called Spectre. It's got...
oh, yeah. That's where they were in the desert in South America.
In North Africa, yes.
North Africa.
So...
Where was that taking place at?
It was...
I thought it was Argentina. It wasn't Argentina, was it?
Well, the movie started off with the Day of the Dead in Mexico. That's how it began. But it starts to wind up where James Bond has tracked the operations of this organization called Spectre. They're so hard to identify that even British intelligence could not identify them because these guys are aligned. Not their loyalty isn't to the organizations they work for. Their loyalty is to each other, and they're embedded in every organization in every country. I mean, they're at the top levels of power of these organizations, and they are the ones that are against humanity. It's not the Iranians against the world or the North Koreans against the world. And if you think that's how the world works, you're just naive. You're just very naive. Because there really is a conspiracy. There really is one. And it was interesting because, there are certain professions that naturally lead to being exposed to these types of things. And Hollywood is absolutely one of them. I mean, is there anyone here that doubts that Hollywood is not under complete satanic control?
No, I believe they're under complete satanic control.
And when we say complete, I mean dominant. It doesn't mean it's 100%. There still are Christians in Hollywood. There are still movies that do come out. And a lot of the movies that discuss these types of things actually are the artist's way of trying to tell us this is what's happening. But you can't come out and say it in black and white, because then that's the difference between a conspiracy theorist and a popular filmmaker. But in this, there's a scene in halfway through this James Bond film, he's starting to try. He's now realized that there is this organization, Spectre, and he kind of bluffs his way into one of their rare get-togethers, and you can hear it. I watch movies now with subtitles on. Mm-hmm. Because all the conversations that you cannot hear on screen are written out for you. Background conversations, too. And I was just rewatching it the other day, and as he's sitting down in this, he's bluffed his way into this meeting. There's about 120 people in this meeting. There's a conference table that's, 30 yards long. It's probably got 50 people around it. And all the people circling this group this is, the metaphor of the Illuminati. These are highly powerful people. And as James Bond is walking into the meeting, one of the, there's men and women, and one of the women was reporting what their percentage control of the WHO is and what they were doing, the World Health Organization. And how much control they had over all the pharmaceuticals and what they were putting in them that was not supposed to be there. They were breaking this down. And it was just a background conversation you really didn't pick up on until it was written out for you on screen. And I'm just like, wow. And that's exactly how they operate. Mm-hmm. So the guys in Yeah, on some level there is. I mean, we're all familiar with the fact that Nazis worked with the OSS, which ended up becoming the Central Intelligence Agency, and the U.S. Intelligence Agency is worked with the KGB on many occasions, many operations. There's certain levels of obvious collusion, but the guys at the KGB, they're doing it because, in general, not all of them, but because they want communism to win. They want their nation to be victorious. They're playing on the national pride of Russia. We have the same thing. We're doing this for America, but what they don't realize is the higher agenda. And these groups, the same way that all of our intelligence, our government, secret societies, it's compartmentalized and specialized. You only know one little thing, and that is what our society values now. If you are an expert in genetics, you're considered a genius. But you sit that geneticist down and start to ask them philosophical questions about the other things going on in the world and what their role is in the grand scheme of things, and they're absolutely retarded about it. And yet, we have no philosophers anymore, because philosophy is to know a little bit about many, many things. And that is the only way you can see what's going on. But what do we value? It's specialization. I mean, before you're even in your second year of college, what's your major? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And then you get your master's degree or your PhD, and you're so concentrated in one area, and that is what represents intelligence and success today, is to be excellent in one area. When in general, yes, it's great to be an expert in one area, but if you don't understand the role you play in the grander scheme of things, you are just a pawn. You're just being you, and you don't know it. And if you think I'm not being honest about that, do a quick Google search. We brought up geneticists. Go find out how many genetic biologists have died mysterious deaths in the last 5 years. You guys familiar with this numbers? Have you guys ever looked into this? No. Hundreds. They help. We need you to develop a disease because it will help us cure this other disease. And what they don't know is that they're actually helping create a weapon. Mm-hmm. But they think they're creating something that's going to save people. And if they figure it out, or if they don't like what they're doing and they say something about kaboom, they're gone. They're not heard from again. The only thing that's left is a wife here, a coworker there saying he was scared for his life. He was worried about what he was working on. He tried to alert the media. And the next thing you know, he killed his family and shot himself. Mm-hmm. And it is the same story over and over and over and over and over. And because the Illuminati, Satan's people, own our media, they can say whatever they want and we'll believe it. If they show us a blue dot and call it red, half this country, most of this country will agree and go, oh, you're right, it is red, even though it's blue. And that's part of this insidious system which begins in kindergarten, this indoctrination. Believe authority figures, believe them, follow orders. That is what is valued. Get good grades, memorize the capitals. You're basically being incentivized to be an expert at the game inside of life. It's like they're really great at Monopoly. Like I've got banker friends that are great at, quote unquote, the monopoly of life. They're excellent bankers. They know how to raise money and they make a shitload of it. But do they have any idea of what's going on? Do they understand the role they're playing? And I'm not talking banker like mortgage banker. I'm talking like investment banking, real bankers. And and this is where this self-deceit comes in, because you're told by everyone. You're told by your peers in your industry, and you're told by your paycheck that you're on the right track. And they can't see the fact that they are completely off, which is also biblical. God said, you cannot serve money and God. You can't do both. I've tried. you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. And our forefathers warned us against it. They absolutely did. And we're now 3 generations gone, and it's now just getting worse. I don't even think we need to worry about the next generation because they just don't have time to let this drag out much longer. That what's happening
I don't think it can drag out much longer, to be honest with you.
There's only a few more things they need to lock down. I think Trump is doing some things that are setting them back.
Mm-hmm.
To get us off of this mandated Obamacare is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is real or not, but I did see these documents. Again, it's hard to pick out what's true and what's not because even in most of the deception that these guys invest in is right at the edge. It is right. The deeper you go, the more deception you're going to encounter. Yes, there are, let's just call it, it's like, it's the layers of the onion. We think that most of the effort is put on to keep that first layer from being peeled. And it's got a high percentage of effort put into that first layer because that's probably the easiest one to keep people out of. Oh, you looked into 9/11? You're a wacko if you think that. But once you get past that, then all of a sudden all these other things start coming, the Sandy Hooks and the Oklahoma City bombings, and you start to the New World Order, the Illuminati. Then all of a sudden now you're starting to really you're past the first several layers. And then as you get closer to the core, that is where the heaviest investment in deception is. That's where it gets the hardest. I think it's why a lot of guys can get right to the frickin' edge, like our buddy Charlie last week,
mm-hmm.
but still not get over the hump. It's almost like you need an okay from spiritual forces above in order to be bestowed with that. They're not. And he sent me an email, by the way. He's like, he loved being on. He said it was great. He talked a little more privately with me about what he does. And this is why I've been saying this for a long time. We don't have, I don't think, a decade, especially at the rate, because this type of information grows exponentially. For me personally, I know like I've woken up 20 people in my inner circle. I'm not talking about the public. These are just people I know. You've now, it's starting to affect your wife, your coworkers. Same with Dave DiBiase. It's his coworkers. The people around him are starting to wake up to it. Howard, I'm sure you've got some people that are. And so every person is alerting another one or two. And you follow. That's a hyperbolic curve. And we're now on the upswing of this. The time just isn't there. They don't have that much time. I mean, this to me has got to be, well, God said it would be within a generation of, there's some discrepancy on how to define it, but it's the reestablishment of Israel. It is the retaking of Jerusalem. Maybe it's the fact that Jerusalem's now the capital. Maybe that's now the ticking clock. But all these things would happen. The book of Revelation would come to an end, right on the cusp of the 1,000-year millennial reign. That generation, which is defined as 70 years in the Bible, would see it all happen. And if you're going from the earliest possible date, the regathering of Israel as a nation, which would not be in spirit, meaning they would not believe Jesus was the Messiah, that was prophesied. I mean, and if you can do the mathematics, it was actually prophesied to happen on May 14th, 1948, which is the exact day it happened. A lot of people think that begins the ticking clock, 70 years, which puts us at 2018. It could be when the Israeli army walked into Jerusalem and reoccupied basically God's city. That was in 1967. Possibly that begins the 70-year countdown. And that's why you'll hear me say often it's going to be sometime between 2018 and 2038. 2030, whatever, that we're going to see the book of Revelation come to fruition. Those are my thoughts. And if you're interested, I'll tell you how I think it's going to, like the theory of how I think this is going to play out. Because it gets complicated, because this involves alien visitation. This involves things that man has never seen. This involves...
That's what's interesting, because that's in the news now. It's becoming mainstream news about aliens.
Oh, we are being conditioned. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know how many people in the United States believe that aliens are in our skies?
Oh, tons.
Take a wild guess. The number is astronomical.
93%.
89% when I checked last. Think about that. 9 out of 10 people believe secretly, yet they've been brainwashed to not discuss it with other people.
Right.
So if I take a private poll in a room, I'll get 9 out of 10 people, saying, hey, yeah, I know there's something up
go
there.
to an auditorium and ask everybody to raise their hands.
And only, a brave tenth of them probably will do it. Because everyone's afraid of being rejected by the group. And that's why Jesus said, man, don't even trust yourself. And so the setup is beautiful. It's beautiful because when they appear, obviously they're going to be technologically more advanced than we are. It's certainly going to appear that way. And everyone that has been secretly telling their girlfriends, I'm telling you, there's aliens in the skies, they're all going to feel like I was right. But they don't realize that this is a double cross. They secretly want you to think these are aliens, but they are actually just the demons that have been around forever.
Mm-hmm. I find that part interesting because you don't. It's being. If you get into religion, it looks like that tries to be covered up out of the Bible and pushed onto as it is an alien from another galaxy or another planet or what have you. But most people will look at that and say, for example, let me give you specific examples so you understand. There was a website or a Facebook post that someone made, and they were talking about the aliens. Did you see this one, Howard?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, it's in the group. So this comes out.
I saw it but didn't read it. I know what you're talking about now.
It was basically saying, well, now what are you, paraphrasing, what are all you religious nuts think now, right? And basically I just put down there, well, I think if you get into the people that actually study that, will tell you that those are the demons from the Bible. It was spelled out in that. It was spelled out in the Bible, the Book of Enoch, some of these other sources and throughout time, and it's not something that it's kind of covered up when it comes to religion, but the people that actually study this are saying this is what's going to happen. I mean, the I.D.E. Thomas type folks and
so many of them, J. Allen Hynek. So many of them are quoted in this book, and a lot of them. Here's the story. This is the same. They go through the same steps every time. And it happened to me too, because when I first realized, holy cow, there really is something in our skies, I thought it was alien. Bill Cooper himself thought these were aliens, and somehow the government was working with them. And as you look deeper into them, everyone comes to the same. Not everyone. I don't like blanket statements like that. In my opinion, almost all of the significant investigators end up coming to the exact same conclusion. That they start off because they really think there's something in the skies, and they're coming at it looking at this, wow, we are being visited from other planets. That gets a lot of scientists interested. That type of research was really frowned upon throughout the 60s, 70s, almost all of it. Anyone that came and spoke about this publicly, no matter what their level of credibility, were completely discredited, which keeps future people from talking about it. But they all end up coming to the same conclusion that these things are not from another galaxy or another solar system. These things are right here from Earth. Mm-hmm. That's all we've ever seen are things that are from Earth. And there are so many places on this planet, uninhabited, untouched. It would be so easy to build incredible armies. I think this is one of the things that's going on in Antarctica. That will blow away the human race when they show up. And I think when they do, this is the passage of men's hearts will fail them for what they see. Because they're going to see something that is so effing scary that grown men are going to have heart attacks. And if you think about how we have been conditioned, I mean, think of Hollywood in the last 25 years. I mean, everything is end of the world movies. What is scarier than to watch a movie and go, oh my God, could you imagine how scary that would be? And then to actually have that happen? That's scarier than if you knew nothing and just saw something for the first time.
Well, right, because if it starts happening, you know what comes next because you already watched the movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's even scarier.
You know this one. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's your fears come from your imagination,
yeah,
which is helped along by the media monster that the Illuminati control, which is everything from news to Hollywood. But Hollywood's the cutting edge, and there's, it's life imitates art. Art does not imitate life. Life imitates art. And what is art saying? What are artists saying? That there is a cabal, there is a specter, there is an Illuminati. They do plan on enslaving the entire world. It's the same thing the Bible said would happen. That's what Hollywood's telling us. It's going to happen.
I don't think people understand when you say they're going to enslave the world. I think people look at that and kind of blow it off because they don't really understand what a slave actually is. I mean, you could make a very quick and easy definition. I could say that we're basically slaves to the system right now, to the dollar bill. I mean, because you can't really do anything without having money. So you're basically somewhat enslaved right now. And you continue that on, and you look at what it says. You won't be able to buy, you won't be able to sell, you won't be able to do any of these things. That is your enslavement.
That is a form
of enslavement.
But there's freedom in the pen, and the pen door is open. So we can leave it and come back in. Right now, we're allowed to stand up and have shows like this where we talk about the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, the fact that they're associated with Satanism, Luciferianism, that they have interchanges with demonic entities. The type of slavery we're talking about, remember, this is a type of slavery that was designed by Satan himself. And this is not going to be the type of... Yes, we are slaves to a certain extent now, but you could choose not to be. Right now you have a choice. The last time you will ever have a chance to choose that choice is when you're at a FEMA camp and you're heading towards a guillotine, and you're going to be offered one of two choices: accept the mark of the beast or let your head get chopped off. Now, once you take that mark, you are a slave now. And I mean, this is not a good type of slave. And look, in the plan of these people, it's what was written in the Bible, but their plan is they want to wipe out 90% of the Earth's population. They want to get us down to about 500 million, maybe a billion, of a society that is chipped. And where their power will never, right now they have a chance of losing, and they know this. And every day they wait, their odds of losing increase a little bit because knowledge is our defense. So we're not going to get fooled. We're not going to allow ourselves to be herded into all these pens when the media starts scaring the crap out of us with what's going on, World War III and things coming out of the skies. And the only defense people have is knowledge. That's all they will have. And that knowledge, if they follow it to the nth degree, will take them to God. And God has already said, I will essentially show up with a rescue ship, and I'm pulling my people out at the very last second. And, if you are not in that wave and you're stuck on Earth, after the tribulation, that's it. You're lost. Your soul's gone forever. I mean, we're talking eternity. And that's the real slavery. At the end of the day, that's Satan's main goal, is to be a slave in his kingdom. To have your soul trapped in his kingdom without any access to God, where a prayer will never be heard again. That is his goal. And he's going to come very darn close to creating that on earth, simply because then he can control where those souls go. He's got incredible control now. This world was a relatively Christian world up until the 1700s, 1800s. Wrong or not, Rome, the Vatican. And again, is the Vatican evil in and of itself? No, it's not like that. Are there incredibly powerful and influential people that answer to Satan in the Vatican? Yes. Are there powerful people that answer to Jesus Christ in the Vatican? Yes. But the percentage continues to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle, and the scales continue tipping towards evil. We're seeing it in our government, in all governments. We're seeing it at the United Nations. We're seeing it at the WHO. We're seeing it in the Vatican. We're seeing it in Islam. Everything's getting distorted. You can see the effects of what these people are doing. And their plan, I mean, their plan is public. You can go read they put it out in so many places. The Learned Elders of Zion, which a lot of people won't look, the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. They won't even look at this document because they read somewhere that it was a hoax. Okay? Mm-hmm. Well, this document came out in the late 1800s and got really popular in the United States in 1920. So we've had 100 years now. Now, to say that it's a hoax is a ridiculous statement now, because we now have 100 years of watching what was written in this document absolutely come to fruition.
Yeah,
so
even if the stuff, prior to present day was made up, the accuracy with which he predicted things that happened long after it was incredible.
And that's not the only. The Georgia Guidestones. Think about this.
Yeah.
No one knows who put them there, but a guy named J. Christian, I believe, is who this memorial is put there for. And what does this memorial say? It says that we are going to knock the population down to about 10% of what it is now. That means about 6 billion people have to die. That's 1 in 6, 7 people. That means just about everyone you know is going to be gone. And we need to find an equilibrium with Mother Earth, very Gaia. Anyone that's a Gaia, if you think Gaia is the answer or they're the ones that have the truth, they're darn close. But the Earth is not a god, okay? The Earth is not a sentient being. Maybe there's a spirit in it, I don't know.
When you say Gaia, are you talking about the website, or are you talking about something different?
Well, Gaia, I'm sure there's websites. It is, it's like a peel off of the truth movement that we're on. It basically agrees with everything we talk about, except it's not that God and Jesus Christ are upstairs. It's that the universe has these amoeba-like forces that guide us, non-sentient. It's Mother Earth and Mother Nature.
I think it must be related to because this, I don't know if you call it a website or whatever you call it. My kids laughed at me the other day because I said something about the Twitter or something. The
Facebook.
The Facebook, yeah. You typing on the Facebook there? But anyway, they put out a lot of documentaries that you can find on Netflix and things like that. And some of these, like Roku, access to these documentary shows where it's got some of the people that we've mentioned on the show, the scientists and things like that. So I'm just wondering if it's the same.
Look, there's a lot of crossover. One of the guys that interviewed me was the Coast to Coast guy, George Noory, and there was another guy that are well-known radio hosts in the conspiracy world.
Wells? John B. Wells?
Yeah, he's another one that interviewed me too. And that might have been, if I remember Wells, he realized that we're up against the devil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's very. I like listening to him.
George Noory thinks that this is a human conspiracy that has been handed down generation to generation. But I hear we have to take a break here soon.
Yeah,
Tell you what, for fun, when we come back, why don't we lay out a theoretical series of events that will match the Bible in how the last 7 years of Earth are going to be wound down, which I think is about to begin. In fact, I think it has begun, but it'll be fun. All theoretical. You guys into that?
I love it.
Oh, Christmas, yeah.
Okay. Well, then why don't you get us to break, Mr. H?
Okay, we're gonna pay a few bills, and we will be right back. Welcome back. We're just kind of free-for-alling it and talking about all kinds of topics today. Dave had an interesting idea on the break, so I'm going to let him take over.
All right, so let's back this up with some credible information. Now, if I say something you guys here are not aware of, let me know, because I will pull up the quote.
Sorry. I keep almost falling out of this damn chair because somebody broke it.
Oh,
okay.
We're recording.
Okay.
Are we on, though? I thought we didn't press a button. Oh, okay.
No, that was just my anger.
All right, man. Okay, so you guys are aware that General Douglas MacArthur warned that we are going to be fighting an interplanetary war.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you think he was a conspiracy theorist, or do you think he might have known something?
MacArthur, I think he was probably slightly plugged into what was going on.
Yeah, I think you're joking.
Well, when you say plugged into what's going on, what? Let's point out what side. There's different sides, right? So let's point out evil side and conspiracy. I don't consider conspiracy side evil side. I consider this establishment info the evil side.
I think MacArthur was a good guy. I mean, the things he said. I mean, I think he might have inadvertently at one point been doing bad guys' bidding, but I think he woke up, and a lot of quotes late in his career and later in his life prove that I think he was a pretty solid dude.
Okay, so what do we call these folks, Dave? Good,
Patriots.
Okay, patriots. I agree with that. We'll go with that.
These are men of honor, where truth and honor is above
I like that.
income
Patriots.
and prestige. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that's a good label.
You can be a great patriot and still not see the Bible tie-in, and that pride, that national pride, that patriotism is absolutely being played upon in the highest circles of government, higher even than presidents. And there are so many defectors and whistleblowers out of these circles that have... What I'm going to do in this coming hour is I'm going to synthesize all of them. The counter information, the stuff that is apart from what we see on the news. And if you were to listen to them instead of the news, you are being shown the Bible. That's absolutely what is being shown to us, is what the Bible predicted would happen. So, MacArthur started it. Yeah, I don't think he started it. Actually, this goes back. The first time the idea of an alien invasion was ever introduced was in 1917 by the man that would ultimately end up building the United States educational system. And I'm going to try and find these quotes as we go. Some of this is difficult because this was John Dewey. He said this in 1917. He was an American psychologist, an education reformer. He wrote, or said, "Someone remarked that the best way to unite all the nations on this globe would be an attack from some other planet. In the face of such an alien enemy, people would respond with a sense of their unity of interest and purpose." That was in 1917. Okay? 21 years later, we'd have, this was a test run. This is Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, where he broadcast. He was broadcasting as if there was this invasion that was happening. And they measured how the public reacted to it. And people were killing themselves. There was looting. It was a big deal in the papers. And if you don't study history, you really probably don't know much about it. Then we get into starting near the end of World War II. Pilots are seeing these things which they ended up calling Foo Fighters, these balls of light that can travel at unbelievable speeds, can turn at 90-degree angles, G-forces that would just kill a human. They can accelerate from 0 to, they estimate, around 6,000 miles an hour. You know, this is like Mach 8, Mach 9. This is so far beyond what we have. So they start reporting about these things in the 1940s. These things would fly along our bomber formations, and this was being reported by tons of bomber crews. Then a few years later, we've got Admiral Byrd. He goes to Antarctica. He comes back shell-shocked and basically says...
Operation High Jump is you're referring to.
Well, he made several missions, but High Jump was the big one. I mean, that he had an entire fleet with him. Destroyers, carriers, troop ships. He had 4,000 or so troops. This wasn't an exploratory mission. This was a military operation. Now, why? Well, if you believe the people around him and his diary and his deathbed confessions, even reports he gave to Chilean newspapers as soon as he got back to the mainland. And those reports went out, and then I think at some point someone told him, shut up or you're going to die. Because his comment was, I am no longer afraid of the Russians. The real threat to the United States is what's in Antarctica. And he apparently came across a highly advanced race, which I wouldn't be surprised is the Nephilim, or one variant of the Nephilim. I don't think we're going to get just one. I think we're going to get many.
I don't want to interrupt you here too many times, but would you refer to these as some refer to as the Nordics?
Yeah, these would be the Nordics. They look very human-like. They're actually attractive. These would be the ones that are interspersed with our society, that apparently are interspersed with our society. And you couldn't tell them apart. You know, you couldn't tell essentially a human from a non-human apart. It's hard to summarize 6 years and 12,000 hours of research and testimonies and listening to these guys, but a picture forms if you want to spend that much time. So here's an admiral of the Navy a few years before Douglas MacArthur's saying the thing that we need to worry about is what is in Antarctica. And I'll see if I can pull up that quote as well. And it continues right on through as recently as last year. Here's another quote in the book. You guys know who General Mark Milley is?
He sounds familiar.
U.S. Army Chief of Staff. Now, on April 21st of 2016, this is a highly decorated general. He's the 39th Chief of Staff of the Army. This is about as high as you can go. He gave a speech to hundreds of ROTC recruits at Norwich University in Vermont, in Northfield, Vermont. Here's what he said. And it's funny, but this is how they talk about it. It's like they can't put a spotlight on it, but I think there's something inside their personal constitution where they feel the desire to bring some of these things out in the open. Very much like Myron Fagan did with what happened at the Yalta Conference. And basically he said, I saw the plans for a new world order, like World War II was staged. He dropped out of Hollywood and started recording how this satanic conspiracy operates. More recent examples of guys out of Hollywood, again, because Hollywood is right on the edge of Satan's plans. You got guys like Aaron Russo coming out where he's being pulled aside by the Rockefellers, saying that, hey, their plan is to chip the population, to have them serve the Rockefellers. He ends up linking it to the mark of the beast. And the very year that he went public with that, he dies. Again, same old story. Thanks to the internet, those testimonies are now recorded, and they can't be stopped. Something like net neutrality will keep those hidden forever. You know, there was a reason that the FCC, Federal Communication, used to have a rule that no one company or person could own more than 25 media outlets. They could not own more than 8 radio stations in a city. They could not own more than 1 newspaper. There were several rules.
Yeah.
They existed because someone was aware at the time of what kind of power the media has. Right. And if it did fall into the hands of just a few people, the incredible danger we'd be in. There again, we blew it because those laws have been wiped out, and now we're at the point where 5 human beings control just about everything that is read and heard.
With net neutrality.
This was before net neutrality. With or without. I don't.
So you're talking about the 5. You're talking about the ownership of the.
I'm talking about the. I am talking about the chairmans of. This isn't even the CEOs of GE, for instance. I'm talking about the ownership, the chairman, the real decision maker, the people that put the money in. And we've all been CEOs. The CEO has an incredible amount of control over a business, but if he's got outside money in his company, he answers to bankers. And at the end of the day, I learned the hard way. They fired me from my own company. And that's the kind of power they have. And they certainly exert this on the highest levels. So you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of military guys. They are coming out of places like Area 51. They are saying what they saw. Guys like Phil Schneider. Who's the Area 51 guy with the glasses? He was a pretty well-known guy.
I know who you're talking about.
The name will come to me in a little bit. I'll see it here. But so last year, here's what the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. So if you can't see this continuum, now these aren't yahoos. Ted Gunderson was in charge of 700 FBI agents. He is not a yahoo. Here's what the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army said last year. And you will graduate and be in that complex world, and you're going to be leading the soldiers and sailors and the airmen and the Marines in that world. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're gonna be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with the national leaders and local leaders, and you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with simultaneously. What was he referring to when he said little green men?
Go ahead, Howard.
I'm thinking
this is the Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. What do you think he was talking about?
Well, when we were talking about Nordics, you're talking about, biblically, I think these were, my opinion was, these are the demons.
I think these are hybrid meat suits that are that have a demonic spirit in them. Now, remember, we're up against billions of demons, billions of them, and they're going to play a lot of different roles.
So when you say, just to clarify, when you say billions of this, are you talking about the fallen, the 2/3 fallen?
1/3 fallen angels.
Excuse me, 1/3 fallen angels, who are the demons that you're referencing here. And there are billions. Because it really not really clear how many. I mean, they talk about 200 that fell because
that was a second rebellion and a much smaller one. So
this is a 1/3 of all the angels were.
A third of the angels rebelled in heaven, and they were kicked out of heaven, and they were basically sent down here to earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a prison of sorts because life here for them stinks, and Satan is their leader, and he leads by pain and fear, even at the demonic level. Now, you can find that out by, there have been an incredible number of exorcisms that have been recorded. Now, we are trained to believe that that is all horsepucky. But exorcising demons was something that Jesus Christ did, and he gave that power to his apostles. So it is a thing, obviously. The numbers that we're dealing with come from the book of Genesis. The first rebellion, at least that was made aware to humanity, was Satan led a rebellion where 1/3 of the angels fell. And we were talking a population starting off in heaven that I believe Genesis discusses as 10,000 times 10,000 times thousands. Okay? 10,000 times 10,000, I believe right there is 1 billion. You add another 3 zeros onto that, and we're looking at 100 billion. It's possible that we are dealing with 300 billion demons. But the number is somewhere between 300 million demons. That's the minimum number if you look at the book of Genesis. Personally, I think that there are many more than that. I think there are enough demons so that every living person on earth has several around them. And depending on what you're doing, you will attract more. And if you're living your life in a way that is going to lead you to Satan's kingdom, you are not going to attract many. You'll just be monitored. But as you get closer to the truth, they will start to come to you, and in greater power and in greater numbers. And they've got the resources to do it. And God was very clear. He said, you start to speak my word, get ready. The world is going to hate you. And these guys control the world. Satan controls the world. That we know. It is his world right now. He's renting it. He was in a position to offer it to Jesus Christ. He took him up to the mountain. He showed him all the cities in the world at the exact same time. I don't think that was magic. Personally, it fits in with a flat earth philosophy. So Jesus Christ gets crucified. Satan can't any longer overtly rule. He can't do blood sacrifices in public. You can't bring your children to Moloch and have them burned as an effigy to him anymore. Because now all people have to do is believe Jesus Christ, and Satan can't get to him. And immediately, it took Satan, I think, a couple hundred years to figure out, I have to change my methods, because as John wrote in the book of Revelation, the seat of power at that time in the world was Rome. And it would always be Rome. That would never change. But humanity would be fooled into thinking that it had left Rome. And right off the start, Christians, you have to see something incredible to have this level of belief. But they were willing to die. They were willing to be eaten by lions. They were willing to give their lives up instead of renouncing Jesus Christ. So Satan knew, I can't win. I can't win it this way. I'm going to have to deceive them. And that's where I think somewhere around between 33 AD and the Council of Nicaea, which would have been, I think, 300 or 400 AD, his plan gets solidified. So the first thing that happens is we have the Dark Ages. And after the quote-unquote fall of Rome, which it never fell, supposedly disorganized barbarians took it over. Please. It'd be like gangs taking over Washington. This is just not going to happen unless people want it, unless they want you to believe that that's what happened. So Rome never falls. Rome just becomes... They don't even bother moving to a new city. They just prop up the Vatican. We got 1,000 years of the Dark Ages. And that is where things like the library at Alexandria, I think the evidence of anything that they could find that pointed to the truth of the Bible, the giant skeletons, the cities that were mentioned, these things, they did their best to bury them, hide them. 1,000 years, there's no knowledge comes out of the world for 1,000 years except for a horse collar. Somehow humanity got completely stupider for 1,000 years. We start to pop out of the Middle Ages. It's 1500s, 1600s. Now we're in the Renaissance. All of a sudden, knowledge is now being interspersed into all of society. That is right when the whole world, which believed the planet was flat, we suddenly, very much like Darwin was made famous for evolution, here comes Copernicus saying that, wow, we're really a round ball and we're insignificant. And they don't do it. They have to do it gradually. At first, the Earth is the center of the solar system, and then we're just the third rock out. And now we've discovered so many billions and billions of galaxies that really there's a God that's actually going to pay attention to us. I mean, that's working on so many levels. And yet, science is kind of bringing us back to the fact that what the Bible had to say was right, that we probably live on a flat plane. But you cannot have a demonic /alien incursion from another planet if there are no planets. So we've got to build that in first. Satan's got time. 500 years to Satan is nothing. Now, we think it's ancient history, but if you really think about it, we think we know everything about the world, but I feel we know less than the ancients did. Why do we see Saturn, for instance, portrayed with rings around it? I think Saturn, for instance, might be more representative of a demonic god than a planet. I don't know exactly what's up there, and I don't know for sure if this is a flat world, but I do know that this incredible deception that to me seems obvious, you can't have it with a flat world. It doesn't work. You've got to be part of a universal system. It's the only way that it can work. Now, this deception works on many levels. Now, inside the military, whether you're doing Area 51, think about it. There is an area of landlocked inside the United States that even if our own American military tried to broach it, they would be wiped out. Presidents have tried it. They can't even get in there. What we do have are people that worked there, that saw things, that decided to talk. Phil Schneider was one of them. He was not at Area 51, but he was involved in the Dulce base, where, and this report is not just from Phil Schneider, there are hundreds of people here. I'm going to mention a lot of names. But they're growing these hybrid armies underground, these half reptile, half human, mixed DNA creatures. And you got to remember, it's not like the president's in on it, and the head of the CIA is not in on it. Even the head of the CIA doesn't know everything the CIA does. That is how much compartmentalization there is. I mean, the real power is above him. It is who has the highest security clearances. Phil Schneider said this in 1995. I was involved in 1979 in a horrendous firefight with alien human type, or whatever you want to call them, and I was one of the survivors. I'm probably the only talking survivor you will ever hear. 2 other survivors are under close guard. I'm about the only one around that knows the firefight, that knows the detailed files of the entire operation. 66 Secret Service agents, FBI and the like, Black Berets and the like, died in that firefight. I was there. And this Phil Schneider, you can see his arm was melted off. And he shows the wounds that he had. I mean, something happened. Maybe he's just telling stories, but he did work at Dulce Base. And again, he was murdered. Yet again, like everybody else. So, okay, sorry. I've already talked to you about the other sides of it. Werner von Braun, he himself said, Carol Rosen, who was at his deathbed, you can see her still. Her quote is, speaking of Werner von Braun, he explained to me the reasons why weapons were going to be put into space, the enemies against whom we were going to build these weapons, and that all of that was a lie. He mentioned that extraterrestrials were going to be identified as the final enemy against whom we were going to build space-based weapons back in 1974. The way he said it to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he knew something that he was too afraid to talk about. This is the common theme. You pick it up, you start to put the picture together from the defectors from NASA. There are NASA defectors who've held press conferences stating that we have documented 17 different type of alien creatures visiting this Earth. Now, that they're not really aliens. They're just 17 different type of meat suits that demons embody. They have advanced technology. Think of the technology that we've now discovered. We now know that the Egyptians had electricity. We now know that nuclear weapons existed over 2,000 years ago. This came from Satan. That's explained in the book of Enoch. The second rebellion, when Satan convinced 200 watcher angels. These are super, hyper-powerful, knowledgeable angels that wanted to have sex with women. This is not part of the first fall. This was written in Enoch, and it's been written in many books. These angels were punished so heavily that Gabriel, the angel, said that God's punishment for these angels was so scary that I don't ever see that happening again. Like, the punishment was, they were locked.
3 woes? Is that what it was?
Well, they were locked up in chains. They were going to be locked up for 70 generations, which geologists that understand that there was a global flood will point to the fact that that puts us around 1900. Now, these same 200 angels were the same ones that taught humanity in the very first place about weapons. Like, look what Azazel did. Look what are some of the names of some of these other angels? Super powerful guys. And what have we had since about 1900? An incredible technology explosion. I mean, this has been Satan's century. So you got guys like General Douglas MacArthur. You've got the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I've quoted many presidents and vice presidents. I mean, how much more credible do you want this to get? Thousands of people at the highest levels of society are saying the same thing. Now, here's how they're deceived. And here's what keeps them quiet, and here's what keeps them keeping the secret. Because they have been led to believe that we did recover a crashed vehicle at Roswell. We are trying to learn their technology. We are trying to adopt it. You'll see it in the movie Independence Day. We're going to try and turn their technology against them. Problem is, we're thousands of years behind. So there are many high-level military officials that believe that the Earth is under threat from extraterrestrial attack. Now, if you really believe that, and you've seen this crashed vehicle, which probably came from Antarctica or something like that, and you've actually seen some of these creatures, and autopsies have been done on them, and they've taught you these things are known in these super high circles that are protected with incredible secrecy because we can't let the public know about this because they'll panic. Remember that 1938 radio broadcast? Do you want to see that happen in the United States? They're in. They buy in. You're right. I've got to help get more money into these black budgets. It's the only hope humanity has. And the people that believe that, these are the guys that ascend to the highest levels of the military. And they actually are now incentivized to help protect the secret because they think they're doing it for good reasons. At some point, many of them figure out what's really going on. And the same way you can't go to your church, you can't go to your family, you can't go to a PTA meeting, you can't go and say what you know. You can't go and say it. It doesn't matter who you are. You're ruined. You are ruined. If you're not scared enough by the ones that have been killed for talking, usually the fear of rejection and the fear of being fired and the fear of losing a pension is enough. Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, the moral backbone of this country, the integrity and the honor that is inside of the men that lead this nation has fallen now to the point where we're no better than Sodom and Gomorrah. These men don't know how to stand up in a fight if they had to. They know how to follow orders, and they're just high-level pawns at the end of the day. And honor and truth is gone it's gone. It's just gone from the world completely. So they think they're doing good by helping keep this secret and helping to make their case in front of Congress to divert as much funding as possible to these black projects. It's probably why maybe a conversation with Donald Rumsfeld, who the day before 9/11 said, well, we are missing $2.3 billion, but we have our guys at the trillion. Thank you. But we have our guys at the Pentagon working on this, and of course that unit, that accounting forensic unit, is what got hit the very next day, and somehow that means we lost this $2.3 million.
It's just gone.
Trillion, I say. Keep correcting me. But, if you're a high-level general and you're pulled into a meeting with the president and he's like, listen, General XYZ, General ABC, I know that you guys have a feeling that what happened on 9/11 was an inside job. And yes, it was. Because we got two problems to solve here. Number one is we need oil, and it's running out because we are getting low on oil. It is a finite resource. The biggest oil fields are now all taken. We're not just getting it out of the ground, which is easy. All we have left is these ridiculous, incredibly expensive offshore oil platforms. Why build those if oil is so readily available, for instance? You don't invest $500 million into a machine to get oil when you can invest $50 million into a machine, 1% of the price, and get it off land. These are just little signs that if you're just too dumb and you just believe your authority, you won't get it. The second problem we have, Mr. General ABC and Mr. General XYZ, is, and I think they could even say, as you know, we're being visited and we are under threat of attack. And if we don't get society calmed down, these creatures from the Federation of Planets, or whatever you want to call it, they're going to intervene, and it is not going to be pretty. And that's why we need you guys to keep this secret. Before I knew all this, I would have been down with it. If you dream of being in the FBI, CIA, and the government, and all of a sudden you're in these high-level, wow.
Well, that's what your job is, and that's what you're there to do, to solve problems, right?
No, in the military, you're not there to solve problems. You're there to follow orders. Yeah. In fact, solving problems is frowned upon. You get a lot of blowback when you try and change a process in the military. It is not an easy thing to do. And they are taught. It's a continuing education from what we were taught in school, that follow orders, follow your authorities. And you get all the way up to the Joint Chiefs, the Army Chief of Staff. He has to follow orders too. He's just a grown-up pawn that has now a lot of responsibility, a lot of power, and a lot of money. Why would you give that up? And at top of that, if you can have him convinced that he's actually doing it for national security, now he's serving his country. What would make a guy like that ever change. That's very strange.
Yeah.
The wall's falling apart behind us.
Did those 3 just drop?
Yeah. Just.
But not just one fell and then the other 2. So, you've got guys all over. I mean, the highest level guys, not just in the United States. In 1967, General Kanchi Ishikawa, Japanese general of the Air Force. This is the top Air Force commander in Japan. 1967 says UFOs are real and they may come from outer space. Photographs and various materials show scientifically that there are more advanced people piloting the saucers and the motherships. Now, is he a tinfoil hat wearer, the head of the Japanese Air Force? Or is he saying what General MacArthur said and what Mark Milley said? What's your opinion?
Well, my opinion is they know something that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly assume someone that high up that they would know something and not be insane.
I don't think he's insane because I've read and watched too many of these.
Well, again, I mean, with all the power he has, if he was insane, that would be pretty dangerous, right?
There are so many people that have come out. The question I have is, what is the true? And I tend to believe what you're talking about when you start talking about demons from the Bible and things. That's kind of the road I'm on. I don't know how you guys are, but that's the way I believe it. I don't believe they're aliens from Mars.
Yeah, I never bought that. It makes more sense.
And you know what's funny is if you go back and read the police reports of the people, because this is where it gets recorded. When you see something strange in your backyard or flying over your house or your hometown, what do you call? Who do you call?
The police.
Don't say Ghostbusters.
You
dial 911.
Yeah.
They come. They file their reports. Now, researchers have gone through every precinct in the United States and pulled these reports. And what's interesting is in the 50s and 60s, every time one of these things made contact, they were saying, oh, we come from Mars and Venus. And then as you start to progress into the 90s, they start saying, oh, we're coming from different star systems. We're coming from the Pleiades.
Yeah.
We're coming from something else. Because the Mars and Venus thing doesn't fly anymore. And this is, in a lot of ways, it's proof Satan's very fallible. So, Dark Ages, he cleans out anything pointing to the truth of the Bible. We hit the Renaissance. We start to have a different picture of how the universe is set up, how it's built. Technology starting to grow. 1900, these Watcher Angels are released. Now there's a super technology explosion where we go from bicycles as a main form of transportation in the year 1905. Yes, the car had been invented, but this was a tool. This was something that only the wealthiest of the wealthy could own. Henry Ford made it available to the common man, hence he got wealthy. But we go from bicycles to the Nazis working on nuclear weaponry within 20 years. Think about that. They are working on atomic power within 2 decades of the 1900s. And they get darn close to building a weapon. And the funny thing is the forces of darkness don't really care if it's the Nazis or the Americans or us, because once the technology exists, at the end of the day, whose hands is it really in? It's in evil's hands. They've got it now. So, so we've been warned. I mean, how many high-level military guys? Jacques Vallée, the guy that was the Frenchman on... He was the character portrayed in Close Encounters.
Close Encounters, yeah.
Now, he began believing that what is in our skies is something from is some type of alien life form of some sort. But like so many of them, like Bill Cooper did also, the further he looked into it, he ends up changing his opinion. Here's one of his quotes. The symbolic display seen by the abductees is identical to the type of initiation ritual or astral voyage that is embedded in the occult traditions of every culture. The structure of abduction stories is identical to that of occult initiation rituals. The UFO beings of today belong to the same class of manifestation as the occult entities that were described in centuries past.
Mm-hmm. This kind of follows along when we've talked about the Nazis and the technologies that they had during World War II, and the things. And I know I've sent you guys some different links to things, but
yeah,
one of the interesting things that they said with the scientists who were creating these things, it's not like we were any smarter than any other scientists. We had help.
Absolute help.
Right.
In fact, a lot of guys that come out of even companies like Intel have said, look, we can predict that our computing capacity is going to double every 18 months, not because we're good, but because that's how fast we're going to release this, because what we have actually is 1,000 years ahead of what we have. Mm-hmm. And computing and microprocessors, all of that was knowledge that was given to us. And then we went and did something. So here's a few other guys. You know I.D.E. Thomas.
Mm-hmm. The Omega Conspiracy? The variety of witnesses is endless. This is his quote. They include civilians from every strata in society, not crackpots or lunatics, but rather normal men, family men, men of whom hold responsible positions in their communities. There are also numberless military witnesses from the Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, radar men, guided missile trackers, and ground troops, aeronautical engineers, airport traffic controllers, Weather Bureau observers, ground observers, Corps members, astronomers, FBI agents, state, county, and city police officials, photographers, plus private pilots and crews from American, United, Eastern, Pan Am, Northwest, Western, and Trans World Airlines, all witnesses. There are thousands upon thousands, if not millions. There's a reason 9 out of 10 people believe there is something in our skies. They're going to play a role. I just had a thing pop up on my YouTube. Interesting. It's about the alien deception that just came up as a recommended. So I don't know if...
Well, look, this sets the table for the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm. You think it's self-disclosure for you, or...
I'm just wondering who's listening to our conversations.
Ah, there you go. It'll be on my Facebook tomorrow.
Yeah.
Satan's a counterfeiter. What was Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world? He was half human, half God. Mm-hmm. What's the Antichrist going to be? Half human, half God. But Satan can't come out and go, hey, I'm half Satan. What he has to do is get humanity to believe that the origin of life were these aliens. These guys seeded the planet. Mm-hmm. And they're going to reappear. And it'll most likely happen after a nuclear exchange of some point. I mean, they really started to manifest in our skies after the atomic bombs at the end of World War II. And a lot of people coming out of...
Do you think they were always there? Or do you think it...
Yes.
I mean, because I kind of think it was all...
you can see it in paintings.
We didn't have the
1500s.
technology to recognize what was going on until World War II.
You can go see reports like this. You see it in paintings. They've been here all throughout history.
Right. It just wasn't as widely acknowledged is what I'm asking.
They have just pounded the national conscience with what they are. They keep every movie that comes out of Hollywood is alien visitation, just at the end of the world, destruction. Yeah. So when they do appear, that is what people are going to They're already preconditioned
Right.
to believe that, and they're not going to see the double cross. And if you match up what the book of Revelation, and many prophetic books have to say about what is going to happen in the end days, is this incredible deception that's going to fool everyone but the ones that God has chosen to not be fooled, the elect. And how easy would it be? There's a nuclear exchange. I mean, we're all waiting for World War III.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it. We're on the cusp of it. It was predicted not just by the Bible, but it was predicted by General Albert Pike in 1871, along with the Cold War. So, of course, the technology that the Nazis had would be separated between the Soviet Union and Russia. And here we stand, essentially, as the two superpowers. And the destructive force of the world's militaries, 90% of it is in the hands of those two nations. And we all know they're going to war. If you don't believe it, read the Bible. If you don't believe the Bible, look at the defectors out of secret societies like the Albert Pikes and the Giuseppe Mazzinis. If you don't believe them, look around. Look at what's going on in the world.
Look at the news. And these are things that they're talking about openly now. When they're talking about they're waiting for the trigger to happen. You've got North Korea. You've got, all the things.
The trigger is going to be... So this is what was fascinating about the police precinct reports that were aggregated by all of these researchers in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, is they said the reason that these aliens were visiting our planet was because we were going to destroy ourselves. They now realize, holy cow, humanity has nuclear capability. And they said same thing that was told to Admiral Byrd by these Nordic beings when he was in Antarctica, which is, you guys are going to destroy yourselves. We're here to protect you.
No. To me, that doesn't make sense at all.
What doesn't?
Well, it doesn't make sense that an alien being that's not around, if it's as you say, if it's non-biblical, if it's just an alien that's coming from another galaxy, what do they care what we do? Right? They wouldn't be here to protect us. If they were, you'd know something more than this now. So to me, I'm just kind of interjecting my two cents.
You might say that because we've already traveled into space, that they're concerned about what we would bring somewhere else.
Maybe
the story, if you synthesize
the
the story coming from all of these different sources, we're going to be in the middle of an interplanetary war. That is going to be the big deception. And remember, this is good cop, bad cop. But at the end of the day, none of them, even if they present ourselves as friends, none of them are our friends.
Yeah.
None of them will be. These are the demons from the Bible. And it's going to appear as if some are defending Earth, and there's going to be some attacking Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who's going to win? The ones defending Earth. You see it in movies now with the hybrid whatever. And out of that will come this half alien, half human Antichrist, who, like God said, he will bring peace to the world for about 2 years. And then he's going to start to destroy it. And for the next year and a half, you can read the book of Revelation to find out. But the Georgia Guidestone's goal of wiping out 90% of the population is going to come darn close to being accomplished. But the thing is the bad guys are going to think that they're doing it for good reasons to save planet Earth. There is much more to this plan, but I'll leave it at this. If aliens ever show up, as crazy as this sounds, and I don't care if you think I'm crazy, just remember this point. When they show up, you are now dealing with Satan's final battle on Earth. You are not dealing with an incursion from some other star system. It will be time to get into the Bible. There's still time now, folks. The pen door is open. Get to know who Jesus Christ was, because he is the only way out of this mess that we're in. That's all I've got to say, and I think, are we on next week or off?
I think we're on.
Are we?
We could take next week off.
Okay. We may. If we're off next week, we'll see you in the new year. If not, we'll see you one more time this year.
So, this has been Down the Rabbit Hole. The reason we do this show is to bring awareness. To God be the glory. We'll see you next week.